I, Alphas, master of the gate for this session at the Grand Tetons, declare that this glimpse into the Grand Teton ranges is closed to mortal men for this occasion. You are welcome there at the request of the council, out of your physical forms and in your finer bodies this night. The request of Lord Gautama is that the peace he brought in the name of the risen Christ may surround you all this night in the name of beloved Alpha and Omega. I, Alphas, bring my love to you as a keeper of that gate this night. As a wondrous bell tolling out the radiance of the eternal cycles peals a new beginning, hopes rise like smoke of fragrant incense, and the souls of men are purified by hope in the renewal of the ancient covenants, bearing witness to the souls of men of the gentility of their origin, when all savagery ceased to be and was not, for it had not yet begun. Today, the hearts of the world await the coming of the cycle of eternal peace, when all turmoil shall cease and virtue shall be enshrined, crowning the brows of those wisdom children of the sun who are chosen chalices of infinite grace, not self-appointed, but chosen by the light to bear the light, and acceptors of the grace of God. The word scepter, long ago used, but today, in a world no longer subject to many kings, forgotten, embodies this idea of acceptance of the government of God to rule over the hearts of men. Long ago, as Siddhartha Gautama, when the wondrous love essence first began to rise within my heart, from my knees unto the very center of my forehead, there rose a mighty wave of compassion for the world. I first witnessed death, and my heart grew faint as if with giddiness, for it had been kept from me, and I pondered as to how so unreal a condition could have even the spell of unreality. I soon found the tarnish upon the escutcheon of man's honor, and I recognized that it must be removed. It was then a seemingly impossible task for the world, and so I set about seeking to find the path of righteousness for myself, as contemplatives have done throughout the ages of earth. The mercies of heaven, beholding my struggle and strife, permitted it to cease, and ultimately I found nirvana, stilling of the cosmic breath, the gentle enfolding of the eternal cycles at rest within the consciousness of infinite oneness. I knew at last a compassion with life in all of its perfection. But there came a moment when I heard a voice in nirvana crying unto me and saying, Lord Buddha, come and help us. At first, it seemed to have a quality of unreality, for it came from a sphere afar, your orb you call the earth, and it came from the hearts of many devotees who had learned to love the quiet way of meditation, contemplation of the divine ideal. These gracious men and women, pursuing God's heart, called unto me until the momentum became a cosmic edict. And so in nirvana, the great gateway swung open, and the word passed through, Gautama, Gautama, come and help us. And so my heart was stirred, and I knew the beginning of God's own yearning for every part of himself. I knew it in a different way. Oh, I had known it before. I had known it in a state so wondrous that it seemed as though it could not be transcended. And here I was, face to face with all the glories of eternal peace, and my heart could not be still, for I knew that I must return to the world, and I knew that a spiritual work of infinite grace lay ahead in the cycles of life, and by the side of Jesus and Mary and Saint Germain and others of the great white brotherhood. I returned, and my momentum was added on behalf of the light of the world. And when the hour came, appointing me to the position of Sanat Kumara, who returned unto the heart of Venus, I said, I am ready. And thus ye call me so kindly Lord of the world, but it is the Lord of the universe. It is the Lord of the world, seated upon the lotus throne of each heart among mankind, and I but serve to give my light in the humility of the Christ to the world waiting the dawn of the perfect day appearing. O hearts of light and loveliness, the calls that have gone forth throughout this class, rising with ever-mounting crescendos of spiritual desire attainment, have stirred your hearts, and the regenerate fires now there are blazing brightly. I add the momentum of the other masters to that you have heard before, that in the unified action of the profound peace of God, the hearts of men may wax hot in the pursuit of Christ's victory. Our peace knows no limitation. Our peace enfolds you. Our peace is your victory. For in moments when the dust of the ages, the untransmuted karma of the mass consciousness, hangs like a pall and shroud over the world, the streaming light of the Christ stands with outstretched arms, joined by all of us in solemn and holy invocation that the day of the Lord and the Lord's victory for the earth be established forever, and the kingdom spoken of by Daniel the prophet be established in the house of becoming. You here in the great schoolrooms of earth, troubled at times, should be reminded again and again of the words of the Christ, let not your heart be troubled. Ye believe in God, believe also in me. The hearts of men have been troubled by many things, but it is the fact that there is any trouble at all that must be remedied, and speedily. To one afflicted with a thorn picked up upon the pathway of life, in any part of the anatomy, is painful. The thorn must be removed, all of it, and the healing oil promote the healing of the wound, and nature herself establish tranquility in the body politic of the world. The heads of state, troubled in the past by a sense of restless destiny, an uncontrolled probing to solve the problems of the world's destiny, continue to the present hour to seek some manner of relief for the multitude of problems besetting men. The hand of God goes unrecognized by many who ought to perceive it. But remember well, O cherished children, that they who are alone and in the darkness are frequently affrighted like a stricken child seeking for its mother. And unless the comforting arms of that mother be found and a light be brought, the crying may continue. And so the world today, not having understood the holy light of spiritual truth, but desiring to conform to the rituals of the ages, pursues the religious path, and few there be that find it. And out of those who find that path, few have continued all the way. And of those that have continued all the way, few have been able at the last to resist the great tests and initiations, probing their spiritual stress and strain levels to fit them for higher service, and hence have sometimes taken the grade over and gone back once again into the schoolrooms of earth with unfulfilled purpose and unfulfilled longing. It is our cherished wish this holy eve to bear to you some fragment of God that can find lodging in your heart and mind permanently. It is our cherished longing tonight to penetrate the density of the most dense here or upon earth with some wondrous fragment of truth that can be a shield and buckler to that one at the moment when the shield and the buckler are both needed. It is our cherished hope to render a service to our brotherhood that will enable the hearts of men to be anointed with the holy golden oil of peace. It is our hope to see the tide of the light of men's hearts rise higher and higher in the sense of cosmic desire, until there is a popularizing of the religious pursuit, the search for God, a revival of love for Him who has first loved mankind with so great a love. O my cherished ones, children of the eightfold path to righteousness and children of the West, I speak to you all, whether you pursue the way of the Christ or whether you pursue the path of the East. Let love for God and his goodness, and for his mediator, the divine Son of your own God presence, the Christ light of your being, be your beloved friend and your helper. Every hour and every moment spent in peaceful attunement with this presence cannot help but propel you closer. For the law does not fail, nor can it be so. The standards of men, the criteria established by them, is ever so frequently accurate in assessing mankind's own acts and thoughts. But heaven has its standard, and it is implanted in universal law, in universal order, and in universal service. As Columbus planted the banner, San Salvador, as the Maltese cross was unfurled upon the Santa Maria, as the New World was discovered, so the world shall yet discover in the midst of its turmoil another new world, the pioneer world of testing in acceptance the holy precepts of our own religious instruction. Mark you well the mutilation that has occurred to all holy religion through the ages. Note the destruction that has been wreaked upon nation after nation, whereas during the times of destruction, multitudes were at prayer and invoking the presence of peace. Sodom and Gomorrah, cities of the plain, destroyed by fire, testify a dramatic lesson in karma for mankind. This great city of Sodom, this great city of Gomorrah, laid waste because even 10 righteous men could not be found in the city. And the safe conduct granted unto Lot is testimony to that which has occurred. And before you, in the person of this messenger, you behold Lot, who was then embodied in Sodom and knew the wickedness of that city. I tell you then, beloved ones, that the world is filled with a multitude of dramatic experiences, the crossroads of human lives, the interweaving of contacts, so much so that if I today were embodied in life here where you are, I do not think that I should frown upon a tiny baby, lest I be returned to life to serve him until he had obtained his freedom. Mark ye well, whene'er ye do an act for ill or gain that cannot be reconciled with holy justice, probe the recesses of your conscience and see if you can deny to God whate'er he needeth of the substance he first has given to you. The holy orders of the world today are a bulwark of established spirituality, one we spurn not. We say, welcome, brother, to they of every sect and creed and clime, and turn not down any aspiring soul yearning to climb the way to find the goal. O blessed ones, in many a cloister where abides a nun or priest or one who is a son, desiring strife to cease, shall find our light within him shall increase until his day is done. The day of strife is o'er, when men shall cease the struggle evermore, and yearn to know the way that leads to peace and righteousness. Men half born, yet yearning to breathe freedom's air, cannot spurn this God that is everywhere. His peace, O know, O noble men and women, that you may be lifted upon its wings and find tranquility in a heart that sings with his peace. In the quiet moments and the brooding moments, in the moments of pain and strife and struggle, in the moments of doubt as well as the moments of high courage, my oration unto thee is an acclamation of thy own victory. And now, let us part the veil and together go to the wondrous conclave of light in the Grand Teton Ranges. O holy Sanat Kumara, we welcome thee and all of the Kumaras here to our retreat, God's retreat in honor of those noble, beautiful, wonderful sponsors who gave of their energies to be woven into the wondrous tapestries. Blessed be all who have furnished warp and woof to be woven into the fabric of a noble life, a God ideal. These are men of substance, of science, of medicine, of the nursing profession. These are mothers and fathers and expert workmen. These are men and women who sweep the streets and plant the corn and bottle the holy oil and provide the food through toil and service and love and homecomings and kindness is expressed. You see, O hearts, so blessed are you, that you are entering in to the time when we of the ascended host are almost through the atmosphere. Our glory is so shining around that those of you whose spiritual eyes are even half open ought almost to be able to see our smiling face. So near is the veil parted, and yet for those locked yet in embrace to the carnal mind, we are as sealed and apart as though walls of stone separated us and bands of iron held you back. But not from our love. Our love melts through the stone and bone of being. Our love penetrates all, and naught can hold back our love. O brothers of the Grand Teton, in this mighty retreat, may we not amplify our love until the world is saturated with it. The world has denied the presence of God. How can they deny that goodness that we know? That goodness that we know must expand and glow with fervent fire until the world will see that this is a mighty smithy where we will forge the instruments of the new age. New instruments of liberty will be forged in peace here in our spiritual fortress. And therefore I see before me a golden anvil as the thought form for the year. A golden anvil signifying that service and love and labor are needed to produce the wonders of the kingdom of God among men, to restore them to the old estate, to let them know in honest service that God's way is best, for that which they have won beneath the sun of His presence is achievement, attainment. And so there is lowered the most beautiful golden anvil, an example of the smithy's art, that men may see here a means of using the smithy's forge to heat white hot the furnace of divine love, and take in hand the hammer of God's law, cutting the chains that bind the world and unfurling the banner of peace everywhere, and freedom and hope. Ah, darkening clouds of human maya, may you not manifest. We would push you back and see you put within a sack and then confined to the furnace to be transmuted. But, O mankind, some despair shall surely fall upon the world and be its lot throughout this year, if man shall not make greater effort to repair the breach that exists in the violent world, the world of emotions. And the anvil is needed, the golden anvil, to cut the chains that bind men to prejudice and caste and false creed and the dust of centuries of decay and agonizing. The politicians would do well to look well upon the infamous record of history and perceive there the need to sound a death knell to all that is discordant and vain and greedy, lust and vanity, to fill the coffers of individuality and take the realities of life and cast them into a place where refuse is burning. False sense of values of mankind must be repaired, and the breaches in the wall of God must be rebuilded. And each one must lay a stone for peace. Masons building God's holy temple, yea, but more than masons, sons and kings and priests to God, servers of his light and of the brotherhood in white, whose triumph is legion, and yet man, lacking in emulation, remains unorganized, disorganized, an abomination of desolateness, sitting in the holy places of identity and clamoring for God to repair the breach he did not create. All this is their own lot. They have made it, and they should repair it. We cannot dispense a lie, but only the truth to men who eye the precepts of eternity and look to us for hope. Oh, brothers, we must give them hope. We must give them hope in this golden anvil. An honest man, a smithy, an honest heart, not afraid to serve, to love, and even though the word be toil, man and women together, working as one instrument to forge the bonds of hearth and home, the greatness that has made America one, which Saint Germain so honors before our councils, must be a cup dipped to the world, and in which the world must dip. Some element of hope must spread to all, and fear must be removed, and yet the shadows, Paul remains threatening, grotesque, and uncompromising. You will need and require, O my brothers, great elements of assistance to give to these people, for their hearts cry out for deliverance and for peace. And yet the year of 464 seems to give them no specific promise, except they shall forge it upon the golden anvil. And so I say, O brothers, wise and true and kind and good, upon this spot where now I stand, but a few hours ago El Moria stood, and reminded our council of the Table Round. Well, let the word go forth then, and let it sound abroad throughout the world this new year, that light has given forth from the brotherhood in white the golden anvil. And remember well the inspired words of your late president. Do not ask yourself what your organization or your country or your world can do for you, but each one of you ask yourselves what you can do for your organization, for your country, and for your world. And so the golden anvil is passed, and in heaven, when the coats of mail are forged, the strong coats of invincible golden armor that shall protect you from harm and shall give you instruments of service, you shall express gratitude to the brothers here for this symbol of great wisdom for the times of test, when the forging and all the rest is left to thee. Destiny lies like a gift in thy palm. The destiny is life. The prize is immortality and peace, here, now, and always. But for those who grasp it, here and now, for those who pass it, it remains in the distant, always. Peace of the Buddha and the Christ abide upon all mankind this night, in God's holy name. most august Gautama, most gracious Lord Maitreya, precious members of the Indian Council, ladies of heaven, great angelic host, and cosmic beings, it is our pleasure to address you together with our beloved brothers and sisters and the brothers and sisters of the Golden Robe. The passing cycle has brought about fulfillment of many prognostications laid before this council at the beginning of this last year. Now, as the cycle is about to change and a new cycle to begin, our hearts once again petition in the interest of the holy cause, the radiance of the mighty cave of light may become the universal home of all mankind, and that those whose hearts yearn for the gracious gift of the ascension may find at last the energies of the ascension taking control of their form and manifesting in greater ease in their feeling world a release of the pressures of human experience and the entering in to a greater qualification of divine energy. The weight of human oppression has not lessened throughout the past year, and the energies of the students which have stood guard for many a year have continued to reinforce the bulwark of all righteousness. But because of the mounting crescendo of those life streams released from the laggard element, once again through the portals of birth, it has come to pass that the holding action which was instituted has not been sufficient. We do not decry, but we praise the energies of the students, without whose help the world situation in toto would have fared far worse. We indicate here the great need for a reinforcement of the forces of light and an intense educational program for and on behalf of the holy cause, that those whose hearts yearn to serve may find the necessary training at the feet of the ascended masters, communicating intense knowledge from the brothers of the Golden Robe into the waking consciousness of mankind, thus fortifying anew those who recognize the position of the total world media. Ladies and gentlemen, may I now address you, for I have made a certain summation to the Great Council to refresh and focalize the present dilemma which the world faces on this eve of the new year. The forces that desire to cause war and war plans are not asleep. They have continuously attempted to foment destructive action, but have been checkmated in the past year in almost every case, with only minor actions having manifested. Your beloved Saint Germain, in the interest of freedom, has frequently intruded his own energies to fill the gap, when the energies of mankind of a constructive nature were not sufficient. He is not alone, for he has been joined by many of our council. For a moment, I ask you now to forsake the thought of your own human identity. For a moment, I ask you now, in the interest of giving you greater assistance, that you forget that I am speaking to you in the manner which I am. I am wearing tonight a golden headdress similar to those worn by dancers in our native India. I think those of you who have some concept of my physical appearance will be interested to know that some have thought of me as somewhat moon-faced. I prefer, however, to be called sun-faced. This is understandable if you will consider the negative aspects of the moon, which but reflects the light of the sun, whereas I am one of the sons of heaven, dedicated to mankind's spiritual unfoldment, that the gift of the ascension may be conferred upon more among mankind. Will you then, therefore, tonight, in your own best ability, try to image somewhat the fact that I am standing here and addressing you simultaneously by the projection of my form into the atmosphere, while also speaking at the same time in the royal Teton preceding the ceremonies which are to be held there. In this dual address, which I am giving simultaneously in the great council chamber preceding the ceremonies there, it is my wish to take you apart from your own identity so that you are no longer captive of that identity, but identify almost totally with your God presence. Being quite familiar with the scriptures of the world, both from the standpoint of outer recordings and those that are made on the inner plane, I would call to your attention the specific scripture or sloka, depending upon whether you are from the east or the west, referring to where the sons of God came together as the morning stars and sung for joy. Will you then visualize your entire being as a pillar of bright golden flame? As you feel your being pulsating in this golden flame, will you consider the spot directly in the center of your eyes as being a bright blue orb of luminous substance? Star-like, this bright blue star, somewhat in the center of the upper portion of your head, has a special significance upon this occasion, because I am interested in transporting you out from your own crystallized concepts to a place where you can identify with your God presence and the possibilities of the expansion of your own lesser self when you return once again to pick up your identity, which you must now forsake if you would follow me in this regenerative experience, where I desire to take you apart that you may be better prepared for the moments to be spent in the Grand Teton later this holy eve and throughout the night hours. The pressures of existence have caused the whole world to groan and pain in travail. The afflictions of one part of life upon another must be considered, O my holy brothers and sisters. Most of you are familiar, through family situations and experiences, of the throwing out of energy by individuals, whereby individuals, being disturbed within themselves, cast their own disturbance forth into the auric field of others, and learn to actually enjoy the writhing of purer souls. Beloved ones, this nefarious act is performed billions of times daily upon your planet. It is practiced politically, it is practiced socially, and I am sorry to say it is practiced religiously, which you can take two ways, both in religious activities and quite constantly, by people who in their ignorance throw not oil upon the troubled waters, nor the balm of peace, but the additional weight of their own internal stress. This stress then becomes distress upon the world scene and adds to the conglomerate confusion with which mankind must cope. The insulative qualities of the mighty tube of light have afforded our students with innumerable instances of protection, whereby the great tube of light has resisted successfully the penetration of the thoughts and feelings of others. But by reason of mankind's own lack of faith and persistent doubts concerning the efficacy of the tube of light, mankind are not always aware of the fact that their own thoughts affect the action of this tube of light. For it is a vibratory action of electronic energy. And when that energy is charged forth around you, and the concept enters your mind that perhaps this tube of light is not after all invulnerable, it comes to pass in like manner as when Peter walked upon the waves at the behest of himself and with the permission of the Master Jesus. So long as he gazed upon the Master presence, his feet were upon solid rock. But the moment he gazed upon the waves, he began to sink beneath the self-same waves, and in despair called for the Master presence to save him. Mankind then, by the power of thought, create a rent in their own tube of light, which renders it no longer invulnerable, but creates a doorway or a gap through which rush the discordant energies of mankind. Then, having permitted this rent to occur, and being made once again subject to the influences beamed at them from discordant individuals, they proceed to lose faith in the quality of that tube of light, and reinforcing their negative state, continue to do these very wrong acts, and thus weaken their own tube of light by their thoughts. Through the loss of their faith, these individuals in time lose their constant momentum of calling forth their tube of light. For after all, as they tell themselves, it does not seem to do any good. They do not recognize their own accountability and responsibility in all these matters. And because one of us does not seem to their outer consciousness to be ever at hand and ready to reinforce the spiritual calls which they make, they also perchance lose faith in our presence and our ability to help them. And so the statement that faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen as yet, becomes more important to mankind as they begin to realize the meaning of the Word of God that goeth forth for and on behalf of the holy cause and in the name of freedom. Every word of the ascended masters is a cup of light, a form of a grail presence, the Word of God going forth and containing within it the essence of immortality and victory. Now, precious ones, in order to reinforce my words to you tonight, I have been authorized by the Council to call forth the energies of mighty victory, and therefore it has been granted that inasmuch as victory is tonight in the Royal Teton, that his energies shall be beamed to you in the form of Saint Germain's Maltese cross, but the color of white fire. This focus then of mighty victory, which he chooses tonight to use to honor Saint Germain, is situated high in the atmosphere, directly above this sanctuary and place in your city, Washington, D.C. From this grid of cosmic light, an antenna of beauty and a symbol of freedom throughout this class remaining shall be radiated the energies of mighty victory in order to assist you tonight in obtaining freedom from your own doubts and fears. This energy is now being released, and that action is intended to assist you throughout the coming year in strengthening the bulwark of your faith. Won't you please be seated? The wondrous power of the Great White Brotherhood has never in history been brought to play upon the planetary body as we are wont to do, for the simple reason that we are governed by cosmic law and the responses of mankind. Heaven itself would long ago, as you know, if you pause to reflect, have given this earth her freedom. The reasons for mankind's failure to obtain their freedom lie within their own domain and not within the province of heaven or the great karmic board. However, the mighty God Self of every individual, through the Holy Christ Self, has also exerted what amounts to a vicarious effort in order to bring each son captivated by bonds of human effluvia to a state where the yearning for freedom will exceed the yearning for captivity. Mankind today, existing in a Babylonian type civilization, where men desire to conform to a human ideal, find extreme difficulty in understanding the programs of heaven. Inasmuch as the change known as death seems to be a precipice or an abyss from whence none return, mankind are constantly face to face with a certain element of fear concerning their own passing. Great yogic masters have trembled in India at the very thought that they were about to give up their own physical form. And yet these same masters had oftentimes, through processes of yoga, escaped the bond of the physical form. Somehow or other, the idea of doing so on a semi-permanent basis did not seem to appeal to them. I would like to point out then that inasmuch as so much questioning and doubt exists concerning the passing of life from the physical form, that long ago, as many of you know, the beloved Kuthumi and El Morya permitted a certain spiritualistic activity to be brought about in order and in the hope that mankind's faith in God might be strengthened thereby. As most of you know, this activity that was started through the intercession of the great masters became a very definite liability to the planetary body because it entered into a form of necromancy where mankind did not utilize it in the fulfillment of the light, but rather begun to probe the spirits of those in the lower astral, and therefore many of those so-called earthbound spirits, pranksters, and individuals who desired to perpetrate a hoax upon mankind, often simulated individuals who were related to those seeking to find contact with them, and therefore a tremendous mass hypnosis, if you may call it that, and deceit was practiced upon mankind. However, because of the great yearning of mankind to know more about life beyond, human interest in spiritualistic matters has continued in the mass consciousness of mankind. While this is frowned at today by orthodoxy, it is still practiced even secretly by those who belong to some sects which frown upon it. Frightful abortions of man's understanding occur through the action of voodooism and all types of witchcraft and variants from the mighty light of God that does not fail. It is our wish tonight that you shall not be what we might term babes in the woods in connection with this activity. We are not so much concerned with the action of these nefarious activities directed against mankind at large as we are with students of the light who ought to know better, dabbling in this type of phenomena seeking and thus losing their own spiritual integrity and power. The losses which occur to them render them vessels unacceptable for our use, and thus, whereas we would be otherwise able to use them to spread Saint Germain's freedom flame throughout the earth, we find them unacceptable and cannot therefore give them the assistance which we would. I do not deny, of course, that the activity of mankind in probing the lower astral plane is an activity of great destructivity insofar as humankind are concerned. But I would point out that it is the purity of Saint Germain's own heart that demands of every student of the truth the absolute relinquishment of this type of contact. Mediumistic experience and the invocation of so-called spirits by the means of trumpet phenomena and such type of actions is indeed a most dangerous practice, for there is always the accompaniment of the drawing forth of the energy of the life streams in that circle, in so much so that in the flow of vital energy many have shortened years from their lives, in addition to bringing forth upon the world scene out of the Pandora's box of the lower astral all types of horror and fright. Throughout the years we have noted the symbology of this action as expressed in certain productions released through Hollywood, California, which have had as their theme sheer horror and all types of murderous and vicious activities. Many of these releases have haunted the minds of the youth of the world and filled them with frightful delusions of unreality, which have actually resulted in hysteria in their own world and mental illness in later years. Simply because a certain action does not seem to affect you at the moment that you are exposed to it, does not mean that that action does not lurk within your bones to bring about your own demise and your own spiritual weakening. I therefore urge the strengthening of all chelas of the light with the absolute bond of appreciation for the ascended Master's words, which are cups of light and victory and courage and purity. In God's name, beloved ones, I ask you now, in the name of common sense, if you were this moment lifted into the glory of your ascension? What would you do, beloved ones, if at that moment, at that very specific moment, you were permitted to see the world and to hear of a very entertaining picture which was coming forth upon the movie screens of the world? Would you ask God to be released from your ascension that you might go down to witness this horror? Inasmuch as you would not ask God to be released from heaven to witness this particular spectacular extravaganza of horror, why then, seeing you are now preparing to find your release from all of the fetters of the world, do you attend those particular forms of entertainment which keep you from finding the freedom for which you are calling? I ask you the question. Throughout this class, you have been given a tremendous action from on high for the perfection of your life streams. You are being welded together into a substantial body of world servers that will assist the Great White Brotherhood in setting a more perfect example before mankind. Many of the servers of the light on the higher octaves, some who have recently been among you, are now pulling for you, that you may be able to fulfill the hopes which they themselves had before they made their own ascension or departed this world for the higher realms awaiting rebirth. I ask you this: those beloved children of the light, your brothers and sisters and holy companions, have given their all in some cases, to the best of their ability, for the cause of freedom. Is it meet then that you who are here and yet privileged to serve should not hold dear and sacred the holy cause for which they gave their all? You must recognize life as a caravan issuing forth from the marketplaces of the world, for you are called from out of the multitude, and you are assembled as in a great caravan to march across the desert and to survive all forms of oppression which you encounter in the wilderness. This journey, this caravan of light, which you, beloved ones, are connected with, is intended to be an example to the world at large of what it means to obtain freedom. I would like once again to be most practical, for in addressing you tonight and in addressing the councils at the Grand Teton, I am laying before the karmic board the tremendous weight of human temptation which now exists in the world scene. There has been in the past year an intensification of sex activity which is being thrown at the youth of the world, and I must say, almost blushingly, it has also affected some who are much older. I would like then to call to your attention that this activity, which holds within it the concepts of impurity and lewdness and levity and disrespect for motherhood, in itself is merely a form of Babylonian pleasure, which in itself is depleting the life energies of the youth of the world and engaging them in a state where they are losing their fitness to be conquerors. All of these activities, all of this destructive action, which is a mishandling of spirituality, for spiritual energies are involved, is intended to bring about the defeat of the youth, the disorganization of society, and to make as this messenger told you, pawns of mankind, that they might be used for nefarious purposes by those Babylonian merchants who desire to make merchandise of mankind. There was a purpose in revealing to you the specific cinema known as Slaves of Babylon, which reveals to you that there is a spiritual Israel, and that the spiritual Israel is the reality of Almighty God, the chosen people of God, that mingle upon the planetary body with those who themselves have no interest in holy things. The chosen people of God, then, mingling with others, must come to a state of separation where the ideals shall cause them to return to the land of promise. The land of promise is the fulfillment of the rose of Sharon blooming upon the desert of mankind's own identity. The Holy Land, then, becomes the redeemed land, where the energies of mankind and that portion of life which he calls his own becomes regenerated by the Holy Spirit and can be used in the salvation of both self and the planetary body. This coming Easter, I make a prophecy now. A tremendous infusion of the Christ consciousness, such as never before has been released upon earth, shall be released this coming Easter to bathe the planetary body in a great initiation in order to free the youth of the world from some of the action that has been directed against it. However, in order to ensure that this prophecy shall be fulfilled, it is necessary that certain individuals shall take it upon themselves to make daily calls for the release of that energy. For we need your calls to place before the karmic board and to secure a grant for the earth. You who are here and in embodiment must make the calls and travails in order that by your own almost perpetual novena you may bring about the responses of heaven calculated to bring freedom to these captives and slaves of the Babylonian consciousness. Mankind, I call to your attention that all of the media that are in direct contact with the senses are being utilized in a form of psychological warfare against the spirituality of man. Wherever you turn, to your television screens, where your eyes behold inequities, wherever you turn in the marketplaces, to behold the newspapers and magazines and booklets that are released, you see before you the Moloch of human greed, desiring to captivate mankind, and without a thought of divine purpose. It is therefore true that the battle of Armageddon is being fought now, and mankind as pawns are being moved back and forward. For they themselves, in their great desire and yearning of heart, desire to find their freedom. But how many in each generation do? I call to your attention the fact that so few made their ascension in the time of beloved Jesus that it was almost a travesty to continue to operate the world clock. And yet life, in its great mercy, has passed the world through the so-called Dark Ages and through the ages of the Renaissance, and through many dark periods in your own time, contemporary with your own identity. That these things are true is no mere matter of historical record. It is a matter of your own knowing, for you have with your own eyes beheld it, and your own hearts have weighed civilization in the balance. Many of you have desired to be Hercules himself and to hold the world up upon your own shoulders. And I think if you could, you would. But, beloved ones, this is not enough. Neither is it enough to band together 50 or 100 or 1,000 or 10,000 people in the holy interest. It must come about that some means must be secured for the bringing forth of the ascended Master's words to the people of the world that shall be on a par with those productions created on Madison Avenue in New York and in Hollywood. It is necessary that there shall be generated a generous response from all of the God-loving people of the world, which shall pour into the coffers of the ascended masters, Chelas here upon earth, who desire to see the world reformed by the Holy Spirit, the required coin of the realm that can be used to create television programs, periodicals, books, magazines, tape recordings, phonograph records, and other types of ascended master releases that may be physical, tangible cups of light that shall be released to those in such an attractive manner who need it, that they shall desire to purchase it and receive the word. Beloved ones, although hunger is a very natural faculty, mankind today would not partake of common bread if it were not for the successful advertising campaigns which have been waged against mankind for the eating of bread. The habits of the world are what enslaves the world, and because custom and habit and advertising go hand in hand, mankind continue to pursue certain outer habits and customs, related of course to their existence in the physical, but certainly not productive of spirituality, unless the days acquired through the use of this physical bread shall be used for the eating of the manna which came down from heaven, the Word of God, taken now. The habits of the world are what enslaves the world, and because custom and habit and advertising go hand in hand, mankind continue to pursue certain outer habits and customs, related of course to their existence in the physical, but certainly not productive of spirituality, unless the days acquired through the use of this physical bread shall be used for the eating of the manna which came down from heaven, the Word of God, taken now from the tree of life in the midst of the garden of man's identity, the Eden and paradise within, so that man may reach forth his hand and in partaking of the Holy Word live forever. To live forever, men must be industrious, as was the Christ. To be slothful and degenerate, to be disinterested in holy things, to be interested in a ceaseless round of pleasure, which in the end is but death, is a waste of the vital oil of life. It is a waste of life itself. I therefore, Chananda, this night invoke within your hearts a response to God's appeal issued forth from the great white brotherhood after considerable deliberation. We are aware of one factor. We are aware of the factor of human criticism. But we have considered our total release before we made it. We therefore are releasing tonight, through the means of the Summit Lighthouse, this information of light, in order that spiritual activities may be strengthened upon the planetary body, and that the spread of the truth may come about. I ask you now to pause for a moment and think how many individuals could hear the Word of God if it were spoken from this spot without a microphone, and if the people were gathered in an unbroken, swelling, teeming multitude around this spot backwards for 1 mile. I think you know, beloved ones, that it would not reach, in most cases, further than 1 block. Therefore, you must be aware of the fact that some means must be found for the dissemination of the truth. It is not enough for mankind themselves to bask in the sun of truth. In times past upon the planetary body, on almost every year, recently, since Saint Germain released his teachings, a number of individuals have made their ascension. But it is but, as you would say it, a drop in the bucket. In fact, beloved ones, it is a drop as against the ocean of humanity. When this is considered in the light of cosmic accomplishment, I ask you, what does this mean to the Christ who pledged his all? What does this mean to Gautama Buddha, who also gave his all and regretted the purposeless trend of mankind's dissipation and the sufferings of the world? What does this mean to your own precious Moria L, who has held forth in Darjeeling with a love that surpasses almost any love I have ever known? I ask you, beloved ones, what does this mean to Mother Mary and to all the angelic host with whom you are now becoming better acquainted? I tell you, ladies and gentlemen, it means that their service, which seems tireless and without effort, has no prospect of ceasing for the next 1,000,000 years unless mankind will do something about it. Do you see what I mean? I bring to your attention this, and I propose this to you, that the people today who rub elbows with you, your own contemporaries, your friends, and your neighbors, are but a small portion of the people of this planet. I do not deny the power of the ascended masters to manifest tremendous victory through one life stream. There are innumerable examples of how one life stream has influenced the planet for good or ill. But I am interested tonight in utilizing the power of all of you and of all who shall come in one grand ministration to the planet and its needs, so that you may become of some degree of cosmic worth that shall move by what we might term Archimedes' lever, the entire earth itself. I would point out to you that it has been proposed that if a fulcrum were placed in space and a lever long enough, that one man could move the earth by that lever, utilizing the proper fulcrum. I am tonight giving it to you. You are never going to win the battle, beloved ones, unless mankind are acquainted with these spiritual laws. I do not deny that Saint Germain, whose precious heart is to be cherished more and more from day to day, has made it possible for many blessings to be conferred upon his students and those acquainted with him. And this is also true of beloved Jesus. But I submit tonight a proposal to you, which you cannot deny, that mankind even tonight upon this planet have billions of people, and that out of those billions of people there are millions and millions who have never heard even of beloved ascended Master Jesus, and there are many more millions who have not heard of Saint Germain. If then a campaign is to be waged upon the political scene for the bringing forth of candidates in whom is to be vested some hope for a better world, I propose that the ascended Masters ought to be in the running in this sense of the word, that men ought to at least know more concerning their service to life in this day and age, here and now, that the world may be the recipient of these benefits here and now, and that changes may be wrought upon the world scene by their mighty service to life. I do not deny either that mankind, in their great recognition of the ascended Masters, must pay tribute for all that the Masters have been able to do without notoriety. I noted that one of you was pondering upon this matter, and I desire to call it to your attention. It is true, beloved one, that the Masters have been able to accomplish all of this without notoriety and without fanfare. But I would like to call to your attention that a much greater momentum of service could be obtained, for while many might reject the teachings, I think that through the power of spiritual dissemination, backed up by the calls of the Chelas, many more sons and daughters of light would come to a recognition of all of the power of the ascended Masters. And I tell you that all religion upon this planetary body would be stimulated thereby, and that the blessing of life that would be poured out would be untold. Now, precious ones, each address throughout this conference has been preceded by thought on behalf of the officiating one. I have given this matter great thought, for I am well aware of how you are concerned with your own ascension. I am also aware of how your hearts desire to expand the gift of the ascension to the many. But I desire to implement that tonight with these practical expressions, that there may come to pass the necessary calls whereby an action can be started that will move mankind forward and depart them from the senseless concept of entering the world as a merry-go-round and then departing as one child gets off and states to another, "It was fun while it lasted." Well, beloved ones, the world is more than fun, and yet we do not object at all to your having happiness. But certainly for many tonight, the world is a very sad and lonely place. This sadness and loneliness which penetrates their heart ought tonight to be lifted from them, and some of the great spiritual joy and abundance of the Christ and the peace of the Buddha ought to steal into their hearts. Do you not think so? Beloved ones, then I ask you to join me in a ritual of release. Above us is this wondrous grid in the form of a Maltese cross, glowing white hot with the radiance of mighty victory. Will you take your right hand and, raising it upward toward that mighty Maltese cross and grid of victory, and begin to form a circle, spinning it clockwise? Now visualize as though a beam of light from your hand is rising upward in much the same manner that confetti is trailed from a window, except that this time the confetti is unraveling upward rather than downward by the gravitational pull. This mighty beam of light shall connect with the cross of beloved mighty victory, and down this wondrous ribbon of light there shall stream into your consciousness a momentum of victory. This momentum shall take the form of the Maltese cross in all of you, within your consciousness. And then, at a certain signal, the angelic host will ask you to expand that cross that is imparted to you as a spiritual talent and release it to beloved mighty victory and the angelic host, so that it may be used in bringing a momentum of victory to the planetary body. You may stop now, holding your hands still. Spread your fingers apart. And now sit silently for the space of a few seconds while this energy is borne downward into your consciousness. You may lower your hands. You are to place your hands over your heart. Use both hands. You may let them touch upon this occasion. O mighty God flame within the heart of all life, expand now in these thy children beloved victory's momentum of faith in the holy purposes of God. Expand now by the power of a 3 times 3. Expand now until the world is free. Expand now by the power of a 3 times 3. Expand now and make the world all free. Expand now by the power of a 3 times 3. And now, in an attitude of giving, let all unclasp their hands and release them directly before them. O angelic hosts, take of these holy energies, offered now in the service of the greater light, the offerings of each of these God's children. Raise these energies upward, back to mighty victory's cross, and then, taking a portion of that Maltese cross, convey the energies thereof without disturbing the pattern to the entire world and each soul upon it, that all the world this night receive the peace of Lord Gautama and the victory of mighty victory, the faith of the ascended Master Jesus, and the comfort of the Lord Mahachohan and Mother Mary. So be it in God's holy name. Let there be a widening now of the consciousness of givingness, for God loveth each cheerful giver. You may lower your hands. Beloved ones, we have the power in our discussion tonight, if we would, to erase every burden's care. We have the power to change your snow-white hair instantaneously back to its natural color. We have the power to remove every illness or blot upon your being. And what is more, we are so willing to do all of this, and yet this is not nearly as important to the universe as the salvation of all mankind. And therefore I ask you, would you contribute your energies tonight and tomorrow night and throughout the year to come for the freedom of mankind as Saint Germain has done? Would you consider no specific miracle for yourselves except the miracle of giving, and then perhaps, who can tell what the lords of karma may be disposed to do? After all, when you make your ascension, will you not have restored to you every lost faculty? Then, beloved ones, while I do not deny you the restoration of those faculties, and I say to you who have for so long sought your hearing, remember this, that the beauty and the holiness of God is of more import than the acquiring of physical hearing. And yet, persist in thy search, perchance both shall be won. Nonetheless, beloved ones, the important thing tonight is to give a gift to the world created by God, filled with the same longings of heart for which you desire, charged with the same hope. Each of you lay within a mother's arms. Each of you were at one time brought forth. Then let it be said that you were brought forth for a cosmic purpose rather than an earthly one. The world is filled today with incoming souls. The world is also losing each day a number of departing ones. One day, each individual, unless they make their ascension, will certainly depart according to the life pattern of this world. Therefore, beloved ones, in the interest of self, it behooves you to strive to manifest your own victorious ascension in the light. But, beloved ones, should any fall short of that, would it not be well to bear in mind that to have served others and made it possible for them to attain their freedom would also be of great cosmic merit in any life to come? I think it is true. Would it not be just then to honor God, the Father, the Creator of all life, with faith in His purposes and the realization of His great love with all of its depth and wonder? If then you are to acknowledge the depth and the wonder of God, and you are to acknowledge the service of Saint Germain, and you are to acknowledge the life that has beat your heart through many a year, you ought to recognize that in cosmic unity of purpose there is victory. There is a reason for the creation of the thought form here before this altar. It is not solely to generate in men's consciousness the idea of physical unity alone. For without spiritual unity, physical unity alone would not serve the purposes of God. But by physical unity and spiritual unity and the holiness of unity with God's purposes, all will find shall be instrumental in obtaining a spiritual prairie fire to sweep across the land and peoples of the world and infuse them with awareness of ascended master law. We will be satisfied if that law sweeps across the world and brings 10,000 individuals in the coming year to a greater knowledge of the ascended master. But we feel that if it does in this coming year, that our goal next year would be 100,000. And if we are successful in that, we feel that 1 million could be achieved within the space of 3 years. And with that number, we feel that enough power would be generated to make the whole world aware of both the green tree and the dry. And then, peradventure, the dry tree of mankind's dying aspirations could be consigned successfully to the flames, and the green tree, the eternal, evergreen knowledge of God's holy will, could infuse the world with enough goodwill to obtain its victory and entry into the golden age. It is not our intent to play as the little boy in the cart led by a donkey with a fish pole holding a bundle of hay, and lead you from one year to another with false hopes, who are conferring false hopes upon you. But unfortunately it is mankind who are conferring false hopes upon us. For ever so often, in moments of distress, we witness a tremendous call that goes something like this: "Oh, beloved Master, if you'll only do this thing for me this one time, I will never again do anything wrong. I will be a good person, and I will serve your holy cause faithfully." This sometimes lasts as long as the resolve is made, and no longer. For as soon as the reward which was on its way from God's heart before they spoke is delivered, they happily trip on their way as a child with a pacifier, and proceed promptly to forget the promises made in the moment of stress. I realize there is something ludicrous about all of this, and yet because it is so real and does happen, I would like to call to your attention the need for that degree of seriousness which will bring to mankind the necessary harvest of achievement, so that next year, when you stand at the very crux of entering the year, you will do so with a greater harvest of accomplishment than the present hour. Now, lest some of you be crestfallen, which is not our wish, for after all, are you not upon the summit of life? Then I say to you, realize that we are most grateful for all services you have rendered the holy cause. And we are not speaking so much disparagingly as you might think, for we are speaking encouragingly, for we are outlining for you a program, and the program which begins in heaven must find its receptivity upon earth, and then the caravan shall move forward, and the voice of El Morya, as he describes it in a dictation given long ago, will be heard calling mankind to move forward. Ho! 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 Let all march forward into the light. Beloved ones, we who have served the destiny of the Indian people for so long, we who are accustomed to the faker on the street corner, we who are accustomed to the white beard and the yogi sitting upon a pile of rocks, we who are accustomed to the ceaseless flowing Ganges, we who are accustomed to the funeral pyre and the smoke of sandalwood, have perhaps in the East here a little different concept than you do in the West. For we are exposed to a moving of a great emotional tide sweeping across human hearts, a great excitability, a great melting pot, even far greater than your own. The crowded conditions in our land, in India, are so excessive that demographic problems become almost the most important problems to many of the government leaders, and the question of birth control has become of great concern to them. Beloved ones, I would like to call to your attention that every land is able to learn from other lands some means of understanding of life's problems. The solution to those problems does not lie in one easily secured panacea, but in the courage and faith which God has given to saints and sages through the ages past. To obtain this faith is actually not as difficult as it may be considered. When you desire to obtain an incense to perfume your homes, you go to the place where the sellers of incense have arrayed it upon their shelves, and in parting with the coin in your purse, you secure this sweet incense and bear it to your homes, lighting it there and enjoying the fragrance which God first implanted in the enfolding flower from which the incense is composed. But, beloved ones, spiritual knowledge and spiritual power is secured also through a method of seeking that mankind might find. Oh, I know that you have sought. We have beheld your heart's longing as the waves of the sea engulfs our continent, and the longing of our people extends to your continent, seeking greater machines to do their work and greater industrialization. For while America and the lands in the West have a hunger for the mystic knowledge of the East, the people of the East yearn for industrialization and the securing of goods and services. The world is at a great crossroads. It is almost like your Grand Central Station in New York City, for there is the constant rush to and fro of the multitudes, and yet withal the Christ stands, the Christ of life, waiting to bestow the gift of healing upon mankind, that they may be able to perform good works in his name. Long ago, as he stood upon Bethany's hill and rose upward into the atmosphere, the two angels declared to those assembled there that he should come in like manner as they had witnessed him go into heaven. And so it is that the ascended masters do descend even this present hour into form and declare to you the Word of God, the Word that is the living Word that came down from heaven, the Word that finds a place in your hearts because you are his children. You are members of his sheepfold. Ladies and gentlemen, the caravan does move onward. You are a part of it, whether you wish to be or not. You may fall by the wayside. You may lay in the hot desert sun. You may lay there so long that your bones become bleached, but you cannot escape your immortal destiny. I realize that there is a certain harshness to life, but this is not a part of the divine plan. This harshness is the result of man's resistance to the entreaty of God, and it cannot be avoided at this time. If it were possible, we would long ago have healed all the wounds of the world. In the healing of the wounds of the world, mankind shall obtain their own salvation. A great world leader, before too long, shall be taken from the screen of life. It is not my intention to declare his name, but this man has served the world for a long time in a certain capacity. I therefore, without declaring to you his name or desiring to see you speculate upon it, am most willing to call it to your attention when it has occurred. For this man has served the bonds of love. His return home shall be most glorious, and we shall bid him welcome. When that hour comes, it will be a blessing to the hierarchy to place our hands upon his strong shoulders of service. You, O mankind, need not shrink from the service that you are able to confer. Each of you can confer a service to life which no one else can do so successfully as yourselves. It is not the part of wisdom to belittle yourselves or to belittle others. Every effort made in the cause of integrity and nobility moves the caravan closer to an oasis of fulfillment and ultimately to the land of promise. Those who long to know that which is real about themselves and to fulfill their immortal destiny, not through a senseless round of cycles, but through the completion of the eternal cycle, will be so diligent in the forthcoming year that their harvest of accomplishment shall not be found wanting. In the interest of inspiration, in the interest of encouragement, in the interest of fulfillment, we have outlined our program, and our program concerns you, those who hear our words, those to whom the appeal is given. I am, as John the Baptist, the voice of one crying in the human wilderness, crying for the reappearance of the Christ in the hearts of men throughout the earth, that in that reappearance the world as a planetary body may complete its own initiatic cycle and find itself raised into its next experience in the orderly progression of divine service, worlds without end. O most magnificent Gautama, mighty Lord Maitreya, beloved Lanto and brothers of the Royal Teton, I have this night given my exhortation in thy name, the exhortation but that a few hours ago lay upon the Indian Council table. You have approved its transmission. You have kindly said, there are those who will respond. This assurance has given me the courage to speak it and the energy to confer it, in the certain knowledge that it shall not return to God void, but shall accomplish that purpose for which it was issued. Most gracious brothers in the Royal Teton, we shall not rest from our labors until every soul on the planetary body has fulfilled its destiny. We renew our pledge and we firm our desires in the interest of continuing service to mankind. The spirit of the entire council assembled here will now chant God's holy name, the mantram of being, together with those unascended chelas in Washington who have now been the recipients of our words. You may chant 3 times the holy name of God and know that we are joining you in that release. This shall conclude my address, for I desire no further words to be released in connection with these words, the holy name of God. I